Mark, how do you feel?
Let's go.
Sean Diddy Combs' attorney, ready to go. We are now just hours away from deliberations in the trial of the rap mogul. After hearing from 34 witnesses over a span of 6 weeks, it will now be up to the jury to decide Combs' fate. On Friday, the jury heard from the defense one final time in a 4-hour closing argument that was at times almost mocking the evidence against their client, arguing, quote, boxes of Astroglide taken off the streets. Woo, I feel better already. Lead defense attorney Mark Agafilo said, adding that the streets of America are safe from the Astroglide. Prosecutors, however, got the last word, a final rebuttal to lay out their sprawling RICO case, and they ended with this, quote, the defendant is not a god, he's a person, and in this courtroom he stands equal before the law. Overwhelming evidence proves his guilt. It's time to hold him accountable and find him guilty. So joining us now, Alyse Adamson, former federal prosecutor. Alyse, welcome back after many weeks of talking about this. Yes. First, can we go back to the mocking and the sarcasm? I have to assume they felt that after watching the jury for all this weeks, something like that would fly. Can you talk about the thinking there?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You have to read your jury, and Mark Agafilo is a very experienced attorney, so he knew what he was doing. I think what he was trying to do there was just inject this feeling of unseriousness. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we talking about? Sex trafficking, a RICO, your evidence is Astroglide. It's trying to undermine all of the government's case, just like the idea that this is some serious racketeering conspiracy. I think it might backfire, Audie, because this is also a case about sexual violence, and even if the jury might have agreed with some of the defense points, there's no question that Cassie Ventura and Jane were victimized here. So I understand what he was doing, not sure how it landed.
Meanwhile, the prosecution, in a way, has leaned into seriousness, right? They've taken away the charges that were just attempted arson or attempted kidnapping. What have they done instead? That's
right, and I think that is so key to understand. There was a lot of reporting last week that the government had dropped charges. They didn't. In a RICO conspiracy, the jury must find 2 predicate racketeering acts. That just means the jury needs to find that Sean Combs and his enterprise committed 2 underlying crimes. The government had charged a ton of crimes here. I think 10 call those completed substantive crimes, but it also charged their attempted version, which is the lesser included offenses. So kidnapping, for instance, they charged kidnapping. Remember Capricorn Clark taken from her apartment at gunpoint? They also charged attempted kidnapping. So what the government decided to do was take the attempted crimes off the table, because it's kind of confusing to explain to a jury. Like, they kidnapped, but they also attempted to kidnap. So they wanted to streamline it. And so it would make it easier for the jury to deliberate on the important stuff, which is those completed offenses that the government believes that they proved.
So that leads me to the judicial instructions. People may recall from their TV watching that this is when the judge turns and says, here's what you've got to think about. How critical is that? And are you expecting anything in particular from this judge?
So the jury instructions are so key. They are a very critical part of a trial, and they're a part of a trial that doesn't get as much airtime, right? It's not as sexy as like the big opening statements, but it's important because what the judge is going to do today is explain to the jury what the law is. What is the legal standard? What are the charges that have been brought in this case? Obviously, the defense and the prosecution have framed that up, but only the judge can actually tell the jury. And finally, what the government must have established beyond a reasonable doubt to find Combs guilty. And if you remember, there was an hours-long charging conference last Wednesday. That's when both sides were hashing out what the judge was going to tell the jury the law was. Legal interpretations change. That's why we have case law. And how the law is interpreted could be more favorable to one side or the other. So both sides wanted to convince the judge, no. You got to see it my way. So coercion, for instance, that's going to be very important for the judge to explain. And then sex trafficking. What the judge is going to instruct the jury is that they don't even need to have completed it. It's just that Combs was intending to traffic Cassie, and that is very key when it comes to that 2016 incident that we caught on video at the Intercontinental Hotel. And when the judge explains that to the jury, they might be more inclined to convict on those facts, understanding that it didn't have to be completed.
This is a lot resting on this jury.
A ton. I mean, there's so much evidence, 7 weeks, and there are questions. And so it is very hard to read the tea leaves. I know everybody wants predictions, but it's very difficult to do that.
I don't try and predict with a jury.
No,
not on a case like this. Alyse Adamson, former federal prosecutor. She's host of the At Least You Heard It podcast. Check that out.